Hello and welcome to this special episode of the Rural Roundup, one of a 6-part series called Unsung Heroes. I'm Calum Johnston, and in this episode I visit Douglas Frame at Birks Farm, where we discussed calving at 2. Through speaking to Douglas, it was clear to me that on his family beef farm, their unsung hero is efficiency. Despite climate change not being his primary driver, Douglas talks about the reduction he's seen in his carbon audits. Later in this episode, I'll be joined by a colleague of mine, James Orr, an agricultural advisor with a special interest in the carbon footprint of livestock systems, who will tell us more about this unsung hero, the benefits, the things to know if you're considering it, and the positive impact it could have on your farm or croft and on the planet. Douglas, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this afternoon. I know you're a busy man, so thank you for taking time out your day to be with us. First of all, Douglas, can you introduce yourself and tell us about the farm at home?
So I'm Douglas Frame, farming at Birks Farm, Law, just outside Carluke in Lanarkshire. We are farming about kind of 220 hectares roughly, just over 500 acres. Farm suckler cows and take everything through to finishing. We're farming about 150, just over 150 cows have went to the bull this year. Calving down at 2-year-old and try to keep a tight calving pattern just to maximise to minimise labour and maximise efficiency for ourselves.
Talk me through the breeds that you use, Douglas.
So we were predominantly Aberdeen Angus cows to an Aberdeen Angus bull, and then in 2020 we used a Hereford bull to go across them to do the black baldy heifer replacements, just to kind of increase a bit of efficiency through hybrid vigour. So it's now we've 50-50 split with Aberdeen Angus and Hereford bulls. And so for the last kind of 5 years now, there's been a kind of mix of the replacements in between black baldies and still just kind of pure Angus, pretty much unregistered, but pure Aberdeen Angus.
Talk me through your own background, Douglas, in farming. Has the farm always been in the family, or is this something new to you?
So I am the third generation on this farm. Dad moved here when he was about 6 years old with his mum and dad, and then I was born on farm, and I'm 32. Have been in the farm for the last went to college when I was 18 for 2 years, then went and travelled a little bit for 6 months during the winter to New Zealand and done a bit of work over there. And then since I came back when I was kind of 21, and that's when I've been full-time on the farm since.
Thinking a bit more specifically then about calving at 2, when did you start doing that, and what would you say was the main driver for that?
Officially started calving at 2 in 2021 would be the first time we calved at 2, and it was mostly because I was going to meetings and Jennifer Struthers, our advisor at the time, was very much like, your system could absolutely do this and the output you'll get from it in return will be great. She was doing our carbon audit at the time through the beef efficiency scheme. It ran kind of between 2016, I think it was, in the early 2020s. And so you were getting the carbon audits done through that, and she was like, this will help your carbon audit a lot if you're calving at 2 compared to calving at 3. So it was a bit of pressure, but I was also looking at other systems going, all the really forward-thinking guys are doing it. Dairy was obviously doing it, and I just wasn't 100% sure whether our system could do it without making big changes. So it was just whether we needed to change a lot to do it, or whether we could still kind of do the same system but just calve them a whole year earlier.
So Jennifer Struthers suggested that your system may benefit from moving to calving at 2. In terms of the the carbon audit, in terms of the data, Douglas, have you noticed a difference in reducing on-farm emissions?
Well, now when we are doing carbon audits, there is a difference between what it was when she was doing it originally and when you're now doing it. We're now down to about 20 kilos of carbon produced per kilo of output on the whole farm, which is below the average of the other farms that are in the same data spread.
So talk me through. You've been looking to tighten up the process. Talk me through the system from the bull going out right through to calving. What does that look like?
So our system is as easy as possible. Basically, we have all our own breed heifer replacements already on farm, so the whole herd is all homebred, and basically the heifers get 6.5 to 7 weeks at the bull, definitely no more than 7 weeks at the bull. The bulls go in the 14th of July, the bulls go out for the whole herd, cows, heifers, everything, and it just keeps the whole thing the same. The heifers get 6.5 to 7 weeks to go with the bull. Anything that doesn't hold at all, it gets put into the finishing pens along with other cattle. Because we already finish cattle on farm, it's pretty ideal system. Anything that's in calve then gets treated as a cow, or treated as certainly the breeding part of it. They would then come in for the winter, and then pre-calving in about the end of February time, we'll all trace bolus every one of the breeding females that are in calve, give them a general maintenance, check ear tags, trim tails, trim ear tag the ears so that we can visibly see the ear tags, because we calve outside, and it's really just so that if I'm driving round about and I need to see a mother's number when she's calved for our own recording, it's really easy. And also the all trace boluses, we think if we get them kind of end of February, it's in the cow's system when they last for 6 months. So if they're calving roughly end of April is when we start, that bolus has kind of had an effect in the cow when it's really at its peak necessary of kind of inputs when right close to calving. And then also when it's going out to grass, and the calf will hopefully have a bit of that when it's been inside as well. And so the cows kind of generally get put out, depending on weather, but a week or two before they start calving. Get 2 outdoor areas that we can calve. So when they get kicked out, they get left to their own devices and calve away outside, and hopefully we don't need to intervene too much.
In terms of intervening, you touched earlier on, it's not just being efficient for the business or the cattle side, but I'm just thinking from a labour side, Douglas, has it improved efficiencies from your own viewpoint?
Yeah, definitely think it has. We basically our intervention rate across the whole of calving, whether it's calving a cow, bringing a calf in to suckle, simply tubing a calf out in the field, is below 10%. And basically anything above that, I would be kind of concerned now going forward. I would definitely want to keep it under that. It helps with labour because I can go out pretty confidently, and you're not like, oh, I need someone to come and help me or do this. You can be by yourself, and 99% of the time that is absolutely ample. It's a pretty enjoyable job, to be fair, calving, because when they're calving outside, you go out, hopefully the calf is already there on its feet suckling, and we then just slip them in through one of the gates that are positioned round about our calving area, and it's onto fresh grass in the spring. And it's one of the most enjoyable jobs I have, is just splitting off newborn calves out of the calving field to thin them out.
Are you rotationally grazing as well?
So we are rotationally grazing to an extent. It's probably not as demanding a thing as what other people will have it. It's fairly simple in terms of we've got quite a lot of fields that are in and around that 7 to 10 acre size, and so once the cows are calved and in the kind of mobs of say 35 that they'll go with the bulls, those groups are pretty ideal size in my opinion to go into one of those fields that are 7 to 10, 12 acres, and they can eat that grass for roughly a week, then move them into another field next to it, do the same, and then rotationally graze them round about those size of fields. You definitely could half those down. That would probably be my next step, is maybe split those fields, half them, and then half the number of days they're in them each. But basically, the biggest thing there is the grass is getting a rest. So if they're using 4 fields in a month, getting a week in each, they're still getting the 21 days for the grass to grow.
In your view, then, why do you think other farmers are not calving it too? Then,
only speaking from my own experience, was I didn't mind necessarily the cows calving at 3 in terms of there was big disasters happening, or there was I was probably in the bracket of it was going fine, so why should I change? So there possibly is other people that's like, well, my cows are calving at 3, I'm not having major difficulties, so I maybe don't see the full incentive to calve at 2. But then on the flip side of that, once you have calved at 2, you see the extra output you get per cow because you're having this extra calf. We basically went from having 120 calves on farm a year to having close to basically 150 calves on farm a year, and you were running the same amount of stock except from these extra 30 calves that were running with the heifers, instead of those heifers just having another season at grazing. That I can understand why people maybe think their system isn't broken, so maybe don't want to fix it. That was the camp I was on, and was possibly a bit not digging my heels in with Jennifer, but was certainly wasn't just like jumping at the chance to change it. And then it's not until you kind of see other things. One of the other reasons I wanted to do it was because I felt our cows were just getting too big. There was a lot of those kind of 800 kilo cows kicking around, just because they had that extra year and of doing better and having that to themselves. So we decided to go back to try and bring that down. They were calving, and the weights have ended up, the mature cow size has ended up a better overall size for us.
based on your experiences, then clearly moving to the new system's been clearly very beneficial and positive for you. If I'm a farmer listening to this, I'm sure many will be. What advice would you give for me on getting started?
So I'll probably say the same bit of advice that was given to me was basically make sure your heifer, when they're going to the bull, is above 380 kilos. That was one of the things that because I didn't have a set of scales before the beef efficiency scheme. So that was one of the good things about it, was it gave us the money. You had to weigh your cattle, so we then got a set of scales. I think they've been a lot more common on farms now, because over the last 10 years there's been various grants, etc., given to weigh your cattle. So there's a lot of more resources there to then prove, well, as long as they're above 308 kilos, you can bull them. As obviously, if you have a size appropriate bull, I would probably pick a kind of easy calving bull, or certainly a breed probably, like your kind of natives that are known for easy calving. That would probably be my biggest things, is just make sure you keep them in good form, and keep pushing them on, so that you do end up with, because with a good size of mature cow, it'd be very easy to kind of sit in your laurels a little bit. They've given you this calf and they've put everything into it, and your cow, when it's 2.5 coming up in 3-year old, and you've weaned that calf off of it, it is a bit doesn't look the best, because it has put everything in its calf. You need to make sure you keep being good to it at that point to keep it going, because by that point it's hopefully safely in calf again, growing another calf. So you just need to make sure you keep it pushing on. Don't just think, oh, let's treat it like a cow. You do need to treat those ones separately and keep those ones calving that are calving it to for the first year or two, certainly in their kind of their age group, is what I would say.
We touched on carbon audit earlier. Would you say, was climate change or reducing farm emissions a key factor for you when moving to calving at 2?
I'd be lying if I said it was the main ambition. I certainly would agree that it has been a benefit on the side of it. I can't say it was the definite driving factor, but you see the maths on your carbon audits in terms of kilograms produced per what your output of CO2 is. If you've obviously got a cow that's standing there for an extra year that's not producing you any sort of kilos of output and producing kilos of carbon, the maths there is pretty evident. So I can't say it was the main driver in it, but it was definitely, it was a nice added bonus.
It's all good stuff. I think really just to round off, the benefits are very clear, not only for cattle performance and output, profitability. Also, you touched rightly on you and your workload as well. All this whilst benefiting the environment too. So really, it's a win-win all round. I think just to round off, Douglas, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and I wish you all the very best with it.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the podcast, James. How are you getting on today?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, all good, all good. Now, we've just heard from Douglas. What's your main highlights from his story?
I thought it was. What really impressed me was that Douglas has built his system around himself and his targets. So he's set targets. He wants his heifers to calve at 2, and he's built the system around that. He's not just tried to force the heifers to be able to do that. He's not tried to fit himself and his life around the system. He's built it around himself and his goals. So that's impressive.
From your experience as an agricultural advisor, James, are you seeing more farms moving to calving rather than calving at 3 is calving at 2 type thing?
Yeah, yes, definitely. There's been a bit of an industry push really to get farmers to calve at 2 if possible. There's been a bit of pushback. It's not suitable in every situation. It's not suitable for every breed of cattle, but it's certainly, if you can do it, it's well worth doing it. Typically, everyone probably could do it. It's really just there's a bit of a skills gap there that you need to be on top. You need to change your system to allow that to happen, if you know what I mean.
What are some of the considerations that you're seeing out and about on farms for folk changing their system to calving at 2?
Yeah, so in considerations you have to make, you need to review your breeding policy. If your heifers aren't going to, as Douglas said, he's got a target weight. He needs to get his heifers to before he'll put them to the bull. So if you're struggling to get your heifers to that weight in sufficient time for them to calve it to, you're going to cause problems. So you need to, as Douglas said, he's built a system around that kind of target. So they changed his feeding system to match that, and he's changed his breeds to match the system as well. Other considerations you have to make are in the availability of housing. In Douglas's case, he's got an extra 30 calves a year, which is a massive plus financially, and also a big plus for his carbon footprint. But those 30 calves need accommodation. That's the extra 30 spaces of cow and calf accommodation that it requires. Whereas previously, if he wasn't calving those heifers until they were 3-year-old, they could be in accommodation that wasn't suitable for calves. So there is kind of infrastructure challenges there as well.
You mentioned breeds. What breeds generally work well with this type system?
It's probably not so much breeds. There's the old saying, there's more variation within a breed than there is between breeds. So it's really just breeding cattle that are appropriate. Some of your more native types, we're particularly talking about the Highland cattle here, you're not going to be able to get them to calve at 2. They will not be big enough to calve at 2. So it's just not even something you can look at if you're a Highland cattle producer. Generally, anyway, I'd say. So your Aberdeen Angus, the kind of breeds he's using are ideal for that. You're kind of, basically, I think it's less about the breed, more about that weight target. He's changed breeds to suit his system, and the breeds he's using are working for him and his system, but those breeds might not work everywhere.
From your experience, you're out and about seen a lot of farming businesses in your role as an agricultural advisor. What are some of the other benefits that you're seeing around calving at 2?
So, Douglas mentioned one of his benefits he'd seen was it moderates the cow size. So, the bigger the cow, the more feed it requires just for its maintenance before you feed on top of that maintenance diet for production. So, if the cow's smaller because it's calved a bit younger, that's going to moderate its size, so it's going to reduce your maintenance feed requirement. So there's a financial benefit and also a benefit for your carbon footprint. But the main benefit of if you manage to calve at 2 and you get that right is that extra sales. In Douglas's case, an extra 30 calves a year. That's transformational.
If I'm a farmer listening to this, as I'm sure many will be, where would I start, or what would I need to think about if I'm looking to calve at 2, James?
There's no kind of one size fits all way to get your heifers to calve at 2. It's not suited to every farm system, but to make it work, the nutrition genetics need to be in line, and the weight targets that you need to set. You need to you have to build your calf rearing system around hitting that weight target. So for calving at 2, you want your heifers to be 65% of their mature weight by 15 months. So for a lot of people that could require potentially changes to genetics, bringing in some genetics that will allow you to have quicker growing cattle. But certainly nutrition will probably have to change for some people as well. But the big challenge, it's probably around attitudes, to be honest. It's probably around mindset. A lot of farmers they say they've been calving for free for their heifers at 3-year-old for their entire career as farmers. So it's a big mindset change to calving your heifers a year earlier. It's an attitude, really. It's an attitude. You need to build your system around that target.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the Douglas? I think Douglas summed it up quite well earlier on there that although climate change perhaps wasn't the primary driver for calving at 2, the results clearly show in the carbon audit. As someone yourself who's doing a lot of carbon audits out and about, what's your thoughts on that?
The Irish farmers are a bit ahead of us on this. This is something they've been doing for quite a while. It's calving at 2, and they've got a lot of good research to back it up, both in terms of financial benefit and in terms of a benefit to the carbon footprint. So the Irish government, Chugus, found that calving their heifers at 2 years old, they found a €50 benefit per month for every month that's extra month of delay in first calving. So every extra month the calving is delayed is an extra €50 spent. So if you can bring that to 2 compared to 3 years old, it's a lot of money you've saved. As well as that, they found a benefit of around 0.14 kilograms of carbon dioxide per kilogram of output for a beef system as well. So that's over the entire beef system, and it's a lot of carbon you're saving as well for each month of earlier calving.
Would you recommend it to all beef farms across Scotland? Is it the type of thing that could be implemented across the board?
So as I said earlier, it's probably not something that could be implemented across the board. There's some farming systems that just wouldn't be suitable to do that on, whether that's for infrastructure reasons or for the reasons of the breed that they're using. But I definitely think there's a lot more people could be doing this than is currently. The benefits are well documented in research and case studies. That reduces your carbon footprint, brings in extra income. So it's certainly something that is getting pushed by industry bodies as good practice.
What is the benefit of calving at 2 for me as a farmer, for the farm, for the cattle, and also for the environment?
In simple terms, if you're calving at 3 compared to a system that's calving their heifers at 3 years old compared to a system that's calving their heifers at 2 years old, the system that's calving at 3 years old, those heifers are they're on the farm, they're consuming feed, they're consuming labour, they're consuming other resources, and they're not producing anything for it. So in simple terms, if you're managing to calve them at 2 and you've changed your system and you've got attention to detail to make that system work, you've got all the extra calves to sell, and the extra output broken down over your carbon footprint reduces your carbon footprint. So obviously all carbon footprints are on a per kilogram of output basis. So if you have increased your output of calves because you're producing more calves because your heifers are calving younger, that is going to be reducing your carbon footprint by dilution. But there's also a reduction in carbon footprint from the reduced maintenance requirements because you've moderated the size of your cattle. So there's kind of compounding benefits. And as well as that, if you've got an extra, in on Douglas's case, he's got an extra 30 calves to sell, that's a significant income which you can invest that money into making other improvements. So it's kind of compound growth.
Having listened to Douglas, and based on your experiences as an agricultural advisor, what's the one thing that farmers should take away from this podcast and around calving at 2?
So I think calving at 2 is a very promising KPI or target for a business. If you can make it work, it's going to be a real win for your business. It's going to be financially beneficial. It's going to be environmentally beneficial for your farm and for the climate as a whole. So, but it is challenging to make it work. You cannot you can't take your eye off nutrition and things like that. You've got to look after these heifers so they can perform. If you don't look after the heifers, they're not going to be able to calve it too. You've got to be on top of your game to make it work.
I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there, James. There's co-benefits of calving at 2 for performance, for increasing output, improving on-farm efficiencies. You also touched on profitability, and also, from a carbon audits viewpoint, is reducing emissions as well. So the unsung hero here is efficiency. I guess making small changes to your farming system actually has a benefit to the environment too. Would you tend to agree with that?
Yes, I would. You summed it up much better than I could.
No, not at all. It's great to have you here. It's great to get your input as well, because obviously, we've heard from Douglas, but you've got many clients across not only your region but across Scotland as well. So it's good to get your input too. James, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and I wish you well. Thanks for joining us for this special episode of the Rural Roundup. Check out the other 5 episodes of the Unsung Heroes series, all available to listen wherever you normally do right now. If you'd like to get in touch or find out more about anything that we've discussed in the podcast, head to the show notes. This episode was presented by me, Calum Johnston, produced by Kerry Hammond, and edited by Cameron Walsh in association with the Scottish Government.